Mr. Carter, a wealthy and powerful man who is the president of a large corporation, decides to take on a risky challenge to test both Alex's son and the company's employees. After years of building and growing his business empire, he felt nervous because of Alex's ease of trusting others. He decided to pretend to be a poor old man, applying for a janitor job at his own company. The image of him in an old suit wearing a faded cloth bag on his shoulders, entering the company lobby looks like a person who has lost his fortune. No one can recognize that this is the boss behind everything. When he arrived at the reception desk, his voice was hoarse, and his humble manner surprised everyone. Although he knew in his heart that he was a powerful person, he tried to be simple, asking for only a janitor job, not needing a high salary, just hoping to have enough to live by. His purpose was not to work, but to test those around him, especially Sarah, Alex's secretary. For him, it was not only a test of ability, but also a test of kindness, humility, and the manners of his son and employees in the company. Although he may feel uneasy about this decision, he persists in maintaining a calm appearance, not showing any dissatisfaction or discomfort, even though he knows that he may encounter unfavorable reactions from others. This action of his is not only the courage of a father who wants to test his son's abilities, but also a way for him to learn about the true values in the company, to see if the people around him really value important things such as morality and mutual respect. Sarah, Alex's secretary, could not hide her disdain when she saw Mr. Carter, who she thought was just a poor old man, show up at the janitor's office. With an appreciative look and a smug gesture, she looked at him from head to toe, not hesitating to show contempt. In Sarah's eyes, the company is a luxurious, powerful place, and it is impossible to accept someone like him to work here. She quietly, sarcastically mocked him, thinking that his appearance would only embarrass the company. When Mr. Carter applied for a job without asking for a high salary, Sarah felt no sympathy but thought he was a weak person, nothing to pay attention to. She didn't even hesitate to show her attitude when he dropped the bucket of floor cleaner, causing water to splash on her expensive high heels. Sarah loudly reproached him, not only criticizing his work but also disparaging him for his low salary, saying that a month's salary was not enough to compensate for the shoes. Although Mr. Carter only apologized quietly and wiped the water, without protesting, Sarah still felt no remorse or realized that her actions were excessive. Later, she even pretended to blame him when he dirtied the carpet in the room, deliberately pushing the blame on him unreasonably. All of Sarah's actions clearly reflected her complacency and disdain for those she considered inferior, unworthy of being in such a large company. Little did she realize that it was her pride and disrespect that would cause the events she would pay the price for. Mr. Carter quietly observed the attitude of the employees in the company, all the while pretending to be a janitor. Although he still looks humble and simple on the outside, deep down, he is watching every action and gesture of everyone around him. Every day, he witnessed his employees, especially Sarah, treat him as if he didn't deserve to be in this environment. He noticed the contemptuous glances, the whispers behind his back, and the indecent acts they deliberately did as they passed him. The other employees were no different. They called him by mocking nicknames like the tattered janitor or the old man carrying the garbage, and none of them realized that the person they were laughing at was the one who had the right to decide their fate in the company. Despite being ridiculed and despised, Mr. Carter did not react, did not say a word, just quietly did his job. He knew that this was an opportunity to recognize the true nature of those around him, how they might treat him, and thereby appreciate their kindness, humility, or even their falsehood. Although he felt disappointed by what he witnessed, he still did not change his attitude, still worked quietly and continued to watch. With each passing day, he became more aware of the relationships and motivations of his employees, especially people like Sarah, who were always arrogant, complacent, and dismissive of others. It was these little things that helped him understand that, while Alex's son was the only one who treated him sincerely, the rest were all people who chased after appearances, ready to flatter those in power and disparage those they considered weak. The attitude of the employees made him even more determined to implement his plan, to teach them a lesson in humility and kindness. When Mr. Carter stood in front of the entire staff in an unexpected meeting, no one could have expected that the person they had once looked down on was the chairman of the corporation. In an elegant suit and calm demeanor, he was no longer the poor old man who worked as a janitor that they used to look at with contempt. When he revealed his identity, he felt that his patience had come to be rewarded. He didn't need to say much, just a simple sentence. "I am Mr. Carter, the chairman of the corporation." A sense of surprise filled the meeting room, especially from Sarah's side. She stood stunned, her face pale, unable to believe what she had just heard. The sarcastic and contemptuous words she had given him all this time suddenly turned into indescribable humiliation. In contrast to the confusion of the staff, Mr. Carter remained calm, his eyes fixed on Sarah with strictness, no forgiveness or concession. He was not in a hurry to punish, but he also couldn't ignore her attitude towards him. He said to Sarah in a calm but powerful voice, "You are a competent employee, but your attitude towards others really needs to be reviewed." That sentence was like a bucket of cold water splashing on Sarah's narcissism, making her not dare to argue even though her heart was burning with anger. Mr. Carter decided to suspend Sarah's work for a month, so that she had time to reflect on her behavior. Although it did not show outwardly, in his heart, the frustration for employees like Sarah had been piling up for a long time. This decision is not only a lesson for Sarah, but also a message for everyone who has looked down on him all this time. After being revealed by Mr. Carter and suspended from work, Sarah could not accept the humiliation she endured. Feelings of shame and anger flared up in her, making her unable to calm down. In the months of being isolated from the company, she could only live in bitterness, wondering why she had to endure this humiliation. She could not forget the moment when she was stripped naked in front of everyone, when her image, who had always been honored and admired, was brought down by a poor old man she had despised. Sarah's narcissism is severely damaged, and from there, she begins to nurture the intention of revenge, not only with Mr. Carter but also with Director Hui and the company. Realizing that she was in a weak position, Sarah decided to find a way to overthrow Mr. Carter and Director Hui. She approached Mr. Nam, the chief executive of Minlong Group, a major rival of Mr. Carter's company. In a sympathetic tone, Sarah told Mr. Nam about the unfair treatment she endured, pretended to cry and made up a story about being crushed by Mr. Carter and Director Hui just because she came from a poor background. Mr. Nam immediately recognized her potential and quickly devised a plan to take advantage of the inside information that Sarah had obtained from her time as secretary to Director Hui. In revenge, Sarah constantly secretly collects sensitive information from the company, from important projects to Mr. Carter's expansion plans. She sent all the confidential data to Mr. Nam, received a large sum of money back, but it was not enough. Sarah also quietly sabotaged the company from within, spreading false rumors about Mr. Carter and Director Hui, in order to discredit them in the eyes of employees. These rumors quickly spread, creating an atmosphere of tension and confusion in the company, causing many employees to begin to doubt the leadership ability of Mr. Carter and Director Hui. The gloating feeling of seeing the company gradually fall into difficulties made Sarah more determined. However, she had no idea that her actions were under the control of Mr. Carter, who was preparing a plan to deal with her. Sarah is immersed in the belief that she will succeed, but unbeknownst to her, it is her pride and hatred that are pushing her down the path of self-destruction. When Sarah's plan for revenge seemed to be on the verge of success, she could not have expected that everything was under Carter's control. Although she had collected classified information, sent it to Mr. Carter's rival Mr. Nam, and sabotaged the company from the inside with false rumors, all of these actions did not go unnoticed by Mr. Carter. At first, Sarah felt gloating and complacent when she saw that Mr. Carter's company was in crisis. Employees began to panic, and important contracts were lost to Minlong. She thought she had really avenged herself, that Mr. Carter's company would weaken and that she would be the winner. However, Sarah's complacency was quickly extinguished when Mr. Carter, with his leadership experience and prudence, recognized irregularities within the company. With a robust security system and sophisticated technical team, Carter discovered the source of the leaked information and found Sarah's role in the sabotage plot. At this time, Sarah began to feel anxious. She realizes that she has been deceived, but still can't stop. However, When Mr. Carter decides to launch a fake plan to seduce Min Long, Sarah becomes a chess piece in a game of chess that she herself created. Sarah's sense of victory quickly turned into bewilderment, as Min Long, after receiving the false information she provided, rushed into a race to sign a contract. But when they openly signed a contract with a fake partner, Mr. Carter clarified everything in front of the media, denouncing Min Long for unfair competition. At this moment, Sarah realized that all she had done was push herself into a trap that Mr. Carter had set. She felt like all the efforts, all the sacrifices for revenge were in vain. Her former colleagues, the rumors she had spread, all became meaningless as she faced the consequences she had caused. When everything broke, Sarah not only lost all credibility but also faced severe criticism and legal action. The sense of failure weighed heavily on her, and contrary to her original pride, she was now left with only deep regret. Greed and hatred blinded her eyes, preventing her from realizing that revenge only hurt herself even more. When Mr. Carter, despite his victory, still sent her a message of forgiveness, Sarah felt like a punch in her self-esteem. She realized that, no matter how much she tried to take revenge, she was only a loser, because her own soul was covered by darkness. When the truth about Sarah's plots is exposed, she faces the inevitable consequences. The sense of pride and gloating she once had when she thought she had defeated Mr. Carter and Director Hui quickly turned into extreme confusion. All her efforts became meaningless when she herself was exposed in front of the entire company and the media. When Carter publicly exposed Sarah's betrayal, she felt like the whole world was falling apart. Her face was pale, her heart pounding as the accusations were made. She didn't dare to argue. She could only stand there, bowing her head in shame. The revenge she once plotted has now become the cause of her immediate dismissal, not only losing her job, but also facing serious charges from the law. A sense of shame filled her when she saw all the colleagues she had once despised now looking at her with different eyes. The people who had flattered her now no longer dared to stand by her, and all she did only pushed herself into a tragic situation. Relationships in the company were cut off, and even other companies did not dare to accept her into the job. Sarah's career, which she had built a long time ago, now seemed to collapse completely. She wondered if everything she did was just out of greed and hatred, things that made her so blind that she lost herself. But what hurts Sarah the most is not just the material loss but the loss of self-esteem. She used to be a confident person, but now, she only felt empty. No matter how hard she tried, Sarah couldn't go back to the way she used to be. Mr. Carter's message of forgiveness made her even more desperate, realizing that she had destroyed herself by making the wrong choices. Greed and hatred had ruined it all, and Sarah was now left with a bitter lesson in humility and compassion.